Good day. My name is Andreas Schwartz. I'm a direct marketing advisor with Canada Post, and I'm pleased that you're able to join us today for our webinar, part of our webinar educational series that we've launched in June and July here. We hope you were able to attend the earlier session in June and hopefully have registered for the other sessions coming up in July as well. If you haven't yet, as a follow-up to this webinar, we will be actually sending out a copy of the presentation as well as a copy of the recording, and I'll also send along additional links to register for the additional webinars as well coming up. Today's presenter is Sebastian Raincourt. He's a product manager with data and targeting solutions here at Canada Post. Sebastian's actually been in the data and targeting world in Canada for many years, coming from different industries. So he provides a great wealth of knowledge and experience in the insights into how to use your data for the purposes of targeting and gaining insights into your customers. If you have questions and comments, please feel free to use a question and chat pane at any time throughout the presentation. We will be fielding those towards the end of the presentation towards Sebastian, and as always, we'll also provide contact details as well in a follow-up email to everybody in case you're interested in having a further conversation with us. All right, Sebastian, over to you.
Thank you, Andreas. Thanks for the really nice introduction. I appreciate it. So today I'll try and cover a few things with you guys. The couple of takeaways that I like for everybody to get out of this presentation is an understanding on how we can help with acquiring and retaining customers, and any exercises that could be very beneficial in doing so. Second thing that I'd like for you guys to take away is to understand the importance of knowing who your customers are, their preferences, their location, where they are, and what they like, products that they purchase, needs and wants. And then finally, for those of you that do have access to customer data, such as gathering information from POS terminals, how you can take advantage of this data to really bring all this together. And why is it important to know your customers, target, acquire customers? The average consumer today is exposed to over 3,000 messages on a daily basis. We are bombarded with information, and this comes from multiple media with all the online social media, billboard, radio, TV, flyers, newspaper. We are bombarded with messages on a daily basis. And just to show you a little bit more about the importance of really targeting and the number or the volume of communications that's out there, when we look at the social networking environment, Wikipedia alone has over 3 million articles in English alone. It's got many more millions in, I believe, just over 280 languages. But in English alone, we have 3 million articles. YouTube, everybody goes to YouTube on a daily basis. There's billions of hours or millions of hours that are watched, and hours of videos that are uploaded regularly, all the time. There's always information available there. Blogs, I don't know if you guys have a chance to read blogs, but at some point it becomes very difficult to find the good ones and how to follow. There's so many of them in existence. Facebook, another social media that is used on a daily basis by people all around the world, and then the same thing with Flickr. So we are bombarded with information every day, everywhere, and it affects marketers. And how does it affect marketers? Is there are so many things to keep on top of, understanding the competition, taking into account the economy, what are the industry trends, what are the products that people want. Consumer behaviors are changing, and with the younger generation coming, people that were born in the 90s and early 2000s, they're starting to be more and more versed into social media, and they're more informed. They have access to everything a lot easier than in the past. So this brings a number of challenges for marketers. It's difficult when the people have access to so much information, knowing who are your customers, who are your best customers, understanding your market. You know, a lot of organizations want to grow their market share, but the first step in understanding how to grow your market share is understanding what is available in the market. What is the definition of your market geographically or not? It depends on the industry that you're in. How do you retain that market share? Understanding who are your best customers. We'll go into a little bit more details about that a little bit later. But I think the more important message here is how can you reach your target audience and provide them a relevant message that will be appealing to them, that will bring them to your business, that will bring them from being a prospect to actually making a purchase and becoming loyal customers. So in order to help you with this, Canada Post has a suite of targeting solutions that I'll cover, and we have a little case study that we did help a customer with a challenge. So, excuse me. Before moving forward, the targeting solutions we offer is all based on geography. And as Andreas mentioned, I've been working in this industry for a number of years. And the last few years, probably the last 5 years or so, with the constant growth of the social media and online shopping, the eBays and Kijiji, Craigslist, and all this online, Amazon, for example, where people shop online, I've been hearing a lot about, oh, well, the geography is going to go away. It's going to become irrelevant, targeting geographically is going to be totally irrelevant. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't. It's still extremely relevant. And a couple of examples, we've done a couple of studies in finding out how far people are willing to travel. Yes, there is instances where it's online or it's instant shopping, irrelevant of where you live. But when we look at staples, so for groceries, for example, the majority of customers won't drive very far to go shopping. And if you look in your neighborhood, in your area, within a probably 10, 15 minute, maybe even less than that, how many grocery stores there are. And if you pay attention to the ones that you go to, you'll notice that oftentimes you will drive less than 20 minutes. There are people that will drive further for very different reasons. But in general, people drive not very far. When we look at furniture, there are less store locations. It's less available, but still people won't drive very far. Only a small minority of people will drive over 30 minutes. So that's probably around 50 or 60 kilometers, 50 kilometers distance. So when we look into that, people really shop around where they live overall. For the finance industry, banks and loans and all that, people want this to be close to their homes again. I know there are branches close to where you work and everywhere, but people will often choose their home branch close to where they live. So very few customers will drive very far or for a very long period of time to go to a bank. So just some of the examples of why the geography is still important. And then when we talk about online or mobile advertising, so with the iPhones, consumers really want location relevant messages. So they want to get a deal or an offer that is relevant to where they live or where they can access it. If you are familiar with the Groupons and Daily Deals and all those other social coupons that you get on your mobile phone, they will ask you where you are, or they'll keep track of your location based on your IP address or wherever you're traveling. They'll provide you deals based on those areas that you selected. And then again, so just talking about location, most people, so 75% of people will take an action on a message that is location specific. So when you're looking for a deal in a very specific area. So geography really matters. A couple of other examples. When we look at businesses, whether it's a brick and mortar or online organization, e-commerce, 80% of businesses has a data element, has an address element to its data. So if it's an e-commerce, well, that product needs to be delivered somehow. So this product won't be delivered to a computer unless it's software, but if you're buying books or if you're buying any other products on Amazon or eBay, for example, it needs to be shipped somewhere. So there is an address element that is very important to it. And even if it's a brick and mortar, if you go to, for example, a retail location, a number of retail locations have started recently asking consumers for their postal codes, and in some cases, to even get your street address. So if you're buying furniture they're going to deliver, they need your street address. It's very important. When you're authenticating, excuse me, products, so when you register for your extended warranty on a drill or a power tool that you bought at Home Depot, or you're authenticating when you're accessing a website or some sort of secured services, most times it will ask you for an address to confirm who you are. We talked in the the first few slides about defining your trade area, so understanding your market share. And the first step in doing this is really understanding what is your trade area. A trade area is normally built at a geographical level. It's all based from Yonge Street to university, and then from maybe King up to college, for example, in Toronto. So it's all based geographically, and again, taking into consideration natural barriers, so on and so forth. Prospects, they live somewhere. Yes, they are reachable online. They're reachable via mobile services or mobile phones, smartphones, but they have to live somewhere. They go somewhere at home to sleep at night, eat, and all that. So there is a physical location related to that. And then, since you're living in a home, there's a number of products that are purchased and they stay at that address. If you think of new furnace, air conditioner, windows, roof, a number of items that are purchased stay with the home, even though when you're moving or when you're leaving, it stays there. So still very relevant. So I hope that just those little examples, I mean, we could go on for a while, but I just wanted to show that geography, even though we're in a mobile world and everybody's connected, it is still very relevant, and not just relevant, it's still very important. So how can we help acquiring new customers? Well, a study done by the Winterberry Group found out that targeting actually drives up to 60% of the campaign success. So by understanding who the customers are, where they are geographically, and understanding their needs and wants and preferences, an appropriate message can be tailored, sent to the right prospects, and drive the success at a higher rate. By focusing on best prospects or best potential customers, you can also reduce your costs for marketing. So we know with the economy, everybody's trying to cut budgets, trying to do more with less, trying to say, well, you still have the same budget that you had 5 years ago, but I still want you to grow the business by 15, 20, 30% for this year. So you need to do some advertising. Well, how do you do this? Well, you need to hit your customers on a regular basis. And in order to make your marketing dollars go further, you reach out to the best prospects. Again, by understanding the needs and wants, you can tailor the message and to get better results. And once you do your targeting, then after that you can do some response analysis, finding out what message works, what prospects really responded well to the message, and the areas that worked. What makes us experts here at Canada Post a little bit is we do a lot of those analysis. Over the past few years, we do close to 10,000 analyses on an annual basis, so anywhere between 7,000 to 8,000 analyses that we do every year. And then by doing a number of analysis, we see a number of trends. A number of users or requests comes in, or customers come in, and they ask us to do an analysis. And there's very limited insight in understanding what their market is. When we talk, the majority of people will ask, oh, give me a 5-kilometer radius around my store. But then when we actually draw the radius around the store, we start looking into it. Well, there's a highway that goes through it, no easy access, or there's a river or a lake, or there's a natural barrier that will prevent customers from going to a specific location. So we're starting to do a lot more education with our customers and really defining an appropriate trade area. Understanding customer insights is another thing. A lot of organizations will ask, oh, I need to reach out to population between 25 and 45 with an income of 75 plus, and that own their home or that are married or so on and so forth. And there's a number of other characteristics that are very underutilized. When we look in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, there's a big ethnicity or ethnic variety. There's people from all over the world, so maybe start looking at ethnic origin, home language, understand their culture better so you can define and tailor a message that is appropriate for those people. And also, if you're looking for niche markets, it's also very helpful. And also looking at segments, so market segments like Prism or Site to understand people's lifestyles and what they do, like for fun, for example, so leisure activities and so on and so forth. And we also find often that a number of organizations don't leverage their own data to its full potential. So just little insights here. Excuse me. And then when we look at our targeting solutions, there's a variety of solutions that fits every budget or every needs from the most basic with our new online tool called Precision Targeter. Some of you have probably seen it if you had a chance to go to the website and look at it. You can take a tour and you can try and use the application. It's fairly straightforward. It does very basic targeting analysis based on demographic or not, and it's available for free for anybody to use. Then we start moving up the value chain. We start looking at custom targeting. So we offer our in-house custom targeting solutions where we'll use more advanced census data or segmentation data and make use of your own internal customer data if you have any. And then moving up again, we can start looking, I talked earlier about the importance of knowing who your customers are, who your best customers are, who are the customers that you want to invest in, and maybe the customers that maybe you want to just maintain and the ones that you really don't want to spend too much money on by creating a customer profile. So using market segments, you can define who your best customers are and then understand their lifestyles, needs, and wants and start targeting those people directly. And then finally, at the top of the value chain, we have our predictive analytics model. So again, we start looking at demographic characteristics. So we move up the chain by understanding who your customers are, what does your trade area look like, and start building a predictive model. This is if you reach out to those types of households or those neighborhoods, you will increase your return on investment. So I talked about Precision Targeter being our new online tool. Excuse me. It's a web-based application. It's pretty much a wizard-based. So you can follow steps. There are 4 steps. Describe your mailing. So what will you be sending out? If it's a postcard, what's the size of it? What does it weigh? All the Canada Post delivery operational information that's needed to deliver unaddressed ad mail. The second step is selecting demographic characteristics, and that would be used for ranking letter carrier walks. And then the step 3 would be define your trade area. And that's where it becomes very obvious when you start drawing a trade area and you draw a radius and you see a river or a highway, then you can start refining that trade area and really looking at how will people travel to my store location and where should I be targeting. And then finally, the last step is really induction to the mail. So this online tool allows you to go from the targeting all the way to the induction all in one step. There's no need to go into any different tools. It will allow you to keep track of your budget, and you can increase or reduce your budget if you want to. So I talked about defining trade areas. We see a number of what we classify as structured trade areas. What I mean by that is a very simple distance-based radius, 5 kilometers around a location, whether it's urban, suburban, wherever a number of organizations use the same size. And again, I'll cover that in the case study. Or because they're dealing with Canada Post and sending out unaddressed ad mail, they're using FSAs. So our first 3 digits of the postal codes creates a polygon, and it's just use those FSAs and send ad mail to those areas. When we start looking into more details, or if you start looking at where your customers are, or where you're pulling your customers from, it can start telling a story. So we have a quick example here that we did a distance analysis on the customer file. and found out that 60% of customers will travel 10 minutes. The other 40 will travel a little bit more, but the majority of the customers will travel 10 minutes or less to the retail location. And that in return helps define, okay, so if my customers are coming within a 10-minute area of my store, then maybe I need to start targeting those areas and start understanding the characteristics of the people living in those areas, and start doing a drive time or a drive distance based on how far or how long people are willing to drive. So if we were to compare, for example, I talked about the radius and then the drive time. So if someone were to create that same radius of a 5-kilometer radius around the store and then compare it to a 5 and a 10-minute drive time, like we said, majority of customers will drive 10 minutes for this location. And when I start looking into it, if you notice, there's an area where I'm actually sending ad mail and I'm wasting my message. So the idea here is to really take what you're wasting and move it into other areas that you're actually not targeting because of the radius. So you're limiting yourself. So in this example with Toronto, going up to Don Mills, it's showing that you could go a lot further, so within 10 minutes. So maybe those are lost opportunities. If those people fall within my trade area and they would be willing to drive to my location, and if their demographic or lifestyle characteristics match the ones of my customers, those could be lost opportunities. So it's just a more granular way of looking at a trade area and defining it based on where customers are coming from. So I'll give you an example now with the customer of ours that we've worked with. They have the same challenges where they were doing radii for all their stores, and they had various commitments to their franchisees, and we were trying to help them resolve a business problem, which in turn helped them grow their customer base at the same time. So originally, the cash store would approach us and we would do the same traditional radius for their stores. There was, I believe, it was within urban areas, it was a smaller radius, like a 10-kilometer, and when we went to more suburban areas, it was a larger radius. But we chose this example here just around Toronto with 3 locations in Aurora and Newmarket. And we started looking at them by creating that 10-kilometer radius around each store. We actually found out that there was a lot of overlap, and it's pretty obvious when we look at it on a map. So by the time we removed all the duplicates and started, sending the ad mail, it became very confusing for the franchisee and for the customers. Customers that would deal with one location got an unaddressed ad mail piece for a different location. So it was somewhat confusing. So the first step that we did, so well, let's define a trade area based on where your customers are coming from. So let's take your customer file. Let's run it through a process we call geocoding, which is appending a latitude and longitude coordinate to each address record, and then plot that on a map, and then we'll create a fence area around each of those stores for where the customers are coming from. And what we found out is that, excuse me, is that by doing this, we saw that the store in Aurora, for example, had a much wider reach than the other 2 locations that were in Newmarket. And the main reason why was because of the Yonge Street that's running north and south so people that most likely are commuting to Toronto for work, commuting back and forth, they're taking Yonge Street using public transit. So this Aurora location was very convenient for them. So they would stop there on their way to and from work. And then the other 2 stores had a smaller trade area. So that was the first step. So we said, okay, so this is what your market or what your trade area looks like for those 3 locations. We did this, by the way, for all their locations across Canada. This is just an example here of a small area. And then the second step that we did is we said, well, let's start looking at your customer profile. So being the cash store, when you provide a service to a customer, you gather their information. You know their name, you know their address, you gather some basic credit information, whether they own or rent. So you do have some information. So there was also the demographic characteristics that were, assumes that, okay, so my ideal customer makes relatively low income, they're younger renters, which when we ran the profiling of our customers, turned out to be quite valid. And then we found some outliers, some other customers that fell into different groups. But the idea is that we were able to determine that the majority of their customers fell within a very specific segment. So now we have the geographic component. We know where their customers are coming from, and now we understand what their characteristics are. So now we can start creating a predictive model or an acquisition model to help acquire those customers. So we took the list of customers, and then we started creating a predictive model by deciles. And then once we were able to identify what deciles would be more likely to respond or were the best prospects for a campaign, we were able then to tie that again, bring this back to the geography, because we already had the address information. So we knew the geographic coverage that would be the best potential neighborhoods for getting the best return on investment. So now we defined the trade area, understood the market, understood the customers, which allowed us to create a predictive model to determine neighborhoods that were high potential for them. So the last step was to really take all this together and create a solution for the customer. So rather than saying, for example, okay, I have to send 2,000 pieces of ad mail for each of my franchisees because this is what I said I was going to do, and then having the overlap and not reaching the optimal target, we said, well, let's create one trade area, and then we'll send 6,000 pieces for those 3 locations. But all 3 locations, rather than now having 2,000 pieces of ad mail going out, they'll have 6,000. And then the ad mail piece will have the information for all 3 locations. So now the power is in the hands of the customers to decide where they want to go. So it was a win-win for everybody. The Cashflow won by really gaining insight on their customers, by being able to be more cost efficient with their ad mail. So rather than cutting out or whatever, they were still maintaining their quota and their commitment to their franchisee, but even being even more effective in the way they were reaching out to those prospects. For the franchisee, the benefit was that for those guys specifically, rather than having 2,000 pieces being sent out, they would have 6,000 now. So they would have more exposure, more reach. And then for the customer, it brought the power into their hands where they could do whatever they wanted. So if they wanted to go to one location because it was closer, or they were not aware that it was there, so now at least they knew and they could take that and move forward with that. So we talked about our targeting services and what it can do for you. And we talk also about advanced analytics. A lot of times when I talk to my wife or my friends about advanced analytics, I'm being called a geek, I'm being called a nerd, called names, you name it, I hear it. Well, it's making a comeback, even in the movie industry. I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch Moneyball with Brad Pitt, but they built a baseball team based on statistics, based on data. So data, what I like to say, is the new cool thing to be. Data is coming back, it's sexy again, and people are using it, and it's making sense. And we have the tools and the knowledge and the, I guess, the awareness of the data, and there's more and more available every day. So now that we have all this data and all this information on our customers, it makes a huge difference in the communication between an organization and a customer. Well, not so long ago, a few years ago, marketing was all about organizations promoting their products to their customers. With the social media now and all the different ways of reaching out to customers, it's kind of a two-way conversation. So companies are promoting their products, consumers are providing feedback, and organizations are adjusting that messaging based on the feedback they're receiving. So it's more of a two-way conversation rather than just a one-way conversation as it used to be in the past. And how is that benefiting you guys in the organizations as a whole? Well, by understanding your customers and talking to your customers, you can then deliver a message that is consistent with your customers' needs and wants, and what products are they looking for, what products and services. So opportunities for cross-selling and upselling your customers. It lets the customer make the decision and it reinforces their behavior with different types of loyalties and personalized services. Quick anecdote, I'm a Starbucks fan. I drink their coffee. I have my Starbucks card. And a couple weeks ago, I just received in the mail my gold card. And it was quite the event. I mean, now you guys are going to think I don't have a life, but I do have a life. But I like my little Starbucks gold card. And I received, and at the end of the day, they're not giving me anything crazy. They're just giving me a status. It's status recognition. So it's just something that oftentimes will lead to loyalty. Customer will stay there and still grow the business for the organization. Similar to our targeting, there's a variety of stages that can be followed with the advanced analytics. So we go from the basic, so I'll go into those understanding customer value, then knowing what the customer life cycles is, what they look like, where are they at, are they growing, declining, creating customer segmentation, and again, creating a predictive model to really maintain and grow those customers. So all the way from basic to advanced, and each of them, so I like to usually say that the first two, so the customer value and the customer life cycle, help understand the context of your customers. So it helps you understand who your customers are, where they're at, so that the whole context. And then by using segmentation and predictive model or predictive analytics, it helps you define the content of your messaging and the targeting message that you're going to send your customers. So when we look at the customer value, I was looking for a better chart. I apologize, it's text heavy. We're trying to make this slide a little bit better. But basically is, and I have to thank one of my coworkers helped me this week. I learned something new, the Pareto principle, as it's called. I used to call it the 80-20, but it has a proper name. So the Pareto principle says that 20% of your customers, or 20% or so, generates 80% of your revenue, or 20% of, it's basically the 80-20 rule. So in this case here, we're saying that 20% of your high-value customers will generate approximately 80% of your revenue. And then obviously your medium and low customers will still generate some revenue, but not as high. So where do what do your customers fit in? Where are they on that scale? So are they in the high value and medium low, or have they lapsed? And what can you do for each of those areas? Once we skipped a step here, I just realized that the next step in understanding this is really understanding your customer's life cycle. So where they're at on the scale. So whether they're a prospect, so they are not yet a customer, or whether they're a new customer, or whether they are growing or stable, or are they declining. So basically the bell curve. So they're coming at the onset, they're growing, they like your business, it's basically the honeymoon period, then you become a stable customer, and at some point there's a decline. And this is more evident, I find, in the telco industry. So when you have your contract and then your contract ends and then you get a brand new offer somewhere else, it's often more tempting to move over. So telco companies have to really do a really good job at bringing back those customers that are declining or towards the end of their contract. So once we understand the customer value and the life stage and the life cycle, so where they're at in their life cycle, the next step is really to bring this together and create a strategic segmentation, or strategic segments that will help define what kind of activities will occur for each of those segments. So if we look at the little chart there, we're talking about our prospect. Well, obviously they're not yet at a stage that there might be a high-value prospect because we believe that they look like our best customers. So we really want to work on acquiring those customers. So now we're acquiring prospects. Once we have new customers, or what we call triers, people that come in and will try your business once, how do you convert that trier into a stable or a loyal customer, a return customer? How do you get them to come back? So again, converting those new customers into loyal customers, and once they are loyal, how do we grow them from and bring them to the high value and then keep them there as long as possible? And for the ones that are declining, What kind of win-back strategies can we do? And for our low-value customers, it's really about cost management. Before I continue, I was a couple weeks ago. I was hanging out with some friends, and their kids were playing with a box of Smarties. And I'm sure if I were to ask most of you that are listening on this webinar today, if you've ever done as a kid going through the Smarties or M&Ms or whatever, and separate them by color. So the red ones, the blue ones, the green ones, and for some reason we always eat the red ones at the end. And if you have done this, and I have, so I'm some sort of a geek, I guess you could say, if you have done this type of playing with the Smarties, you've done basic segmentation. All you said is, I want all the reds together, all the blues together, all the browns together, so on and so forth. So it is a basic segmentation. So when we start looking into customer segmentation, it's not really different. We're just trying to find out customers that have similar characteristics. So my red customers, my blue customers, and my green customers, and I want to understand their needs, wants, preferences. How do I get them engaged with my brand? How do I bring them in as a customer? What kind of message? What kind of offer? What is going to take those people and make them tick and make them happy? So it's really all about understanding who your customers are and what they do. So a number of organizations have started doing this. For example, I am a frequent flyer of the LCBO. It's the liquor store in Ontario. I like to go there, buy some European beers and some wine for my wife. And every time I go there, even though the store clerks, they know me because I live in a small town, they always ask me for my postal code. And they always gather this information. They know that this postal code has bought those beers, those bottles of wine, and spend that much on them. Oh, and he bought some products that had some reward attached to it. So they're able to understand the types of products that I'm purchasing. So then for them it becomes an exercise in merchandise mix, but this information could be used as well for promotional services if they want to start promoting a new European beer that's coming to the market, and they would like me to, be a trier of that beer, so on and so forth. So a number of organizations have started doing this with the new POS system, where they gather information on their customers, and then they're able to understand their customers' behaviors. I'll go a little bit further. You probably all have heard that Target is coming to Canada next year. And for those of you that have heard that example before, I apologize, there will be a little bit of review, but Target hired a statistician in their marketing department a number of years ago. And there were some questions as to why a statistician was needed there. But the marketing director, I'm assuming, had a plan at the time. And what they did is they started looking with their loyalty card at purchase behaviors and products that were purchased by customers, the frequency of purchase, so it helped them into their targeting and merchandise mix and promotion, so on and so forth. After a few years, they were able to now create a model based on past purchases. They basically, long story short, they were able to create a model that would predict whether a woman was pregnant or not. And to prove how this was effective, they had sent out a piece of ad mail to a number of customers or prospects in an area. And a gentleman came within the store and started yelling at the clerk and said, "You sent this piece of ad mail to my daughter. She's 16 years old, she's in high school, and she's not pregnant, but yet you're offering her some pregnancy stuff." And 2 weeks later, the gentleman came back and apologized and said, "My daughter is actually pregnant." So the story is that Target found out that this gentleman's daughter was pregnant before he even knew about it. So it is really useful to leverage customer information. It could be very, very powerful if it's used appropriately. So now that we understand who our customers are, what their life cycles are, and what they look like, what are their needs and wants and preferences, again, we can then start creating a predictive model to really find out deciles or areas of opportunities. So who are the most likely to respond? How can I increase my response rate? So how can I go from a 2% response rate to maybe having a 4 or 5, maybe a 6% response rate? Then when we look at segmentations and models, a number of times those two get confused. They call it, oh, a segmentation is just a model. There actually are two different things. So a segmentation is really more a strategic solution. It's really focused on customer data. So in order to build a segmentation solution, you really need to have customer data. And it helps you establish strategies based on the needs and wants of your customers. When we look at a model, a predictive model, for example, it becomes more of a tactical tool. So it's basically an execution. So you create a model to really execute a campaign. It's really focused on product, usually, anyway. And it's really reaching out to prospects and optimizing marketing resources. So here's a quick example of how a predictive model was able to help the Canadian Breast Cancer Association. So the Canadian Breast Cancer Association had a challenge. They wanted to increase their donor base and basically increase the donations of their donors. And they had a reach to about 125,000 households in the GTA. So what we did for them is we worked with them to understand who their best donors were and what their characteristics were. And then again, going back to the geography, targeting those areas. So using all the tools that we have and all the knowledge that we have in-house, we were able to create a predictive model so that they could in turn go back and rent a list of people that they could mail to in order to increase their donor base. And then by using the predictive model and reaching out to the top deciles, they were able to increase the response rate or the donations the donations per donor almost 50% higher than the bottom four. So two of the deciles generated even more than the bottom four. So they're still able to leverage this model and to drive donations. And we know getting donors is always a challenge, especially with when the economy is unstable. So just an example of how we can use and leverage predictive models to acquire new customers. Finally, when we go through reaching out to customers, we can do an addressed ad mail, but then we can start working by reaching out to actual specific people by renting lists. So a number of organizations do list rentals, and then Canada Post has a list available as well. And those lists of prospects or people that can be reached out to, our households, are becoming more and more scarce. It's more difficult to find a good quality list in Canada. A number of the lists are scrubbing phone books, which is becoming more and more challenging with people having mobile phones and not having a landlines, so not being listed in a phone book, not having suite numbers or apartment numbers. There's a number of pieces of an address that is missing. And then what we have done at Canada Post is we have access to all addresses in Canada, and we're leveraging this to derive a better list product available in the marketplace that is mailable. So we do have names confirmed, so people that live at an address. So when you receive mail, you have your name and address on it. We can validate that there's actually Sebastian Rancourt living at this address because he's receiving mail there. We do have the complete addresses. We have suite information, so if you're reaching out into urban areas, you're trying to reach out to people in condominiums or apartments, you need that suite number, otherwise it's not going to make its way there. So all our list is also fully mailable, so it's been validated against every single point of call in Canada. It's affordable. Again, I would recommend you talk to your rep about pricing. But it is competitively priced in the market, and we have, again, the best reach and penetration in the marketplace. For example, Acquisition and Mail, the Banque Nationale used our services. They wanted to target renters to sell them basically renter's insurance or home insurance for renters. And they had a challenge in reaching out to those apartments with the traditional list because they were missing apartments or suites or whichever way that they're labeled. So by working with Canada Post and doing a targeting analysis, we found areas that would have a high potential of renters, people that could afford their premiums there. And So what happened is they rented the list, sent it out, and not only they were able to secure a new home insurance, but a number of their respondents also switched to their automobile insurance to National Bank Insurance Services. Another opportunity that is available when we're talking about lists and we're talking about people is the mover community across Canada. It is a huge market. The Canadian movers spend, on average, $11 billion annually on moving and other related expenditures. Just to give you an idea of the size, it's approximately 800,000 households annually. And 80% of them are willing to try new products and services. I'll go into each of them a little bit more specifically. So throughout the year, there's on average 14% of Canadian households are within the moving cycle. Obviously, it will be higher in July in Quebec, for example, because everybody moves on July 1st in Quebec. But overall, the Canadian average is about 14%, and that is 8% of them that actually have moved in the recent past, or 6% that are currently planning on moving. They're usually aged 25 to 44, and they have money to spend. They have a household income over $70,000. They do have money to spend. When we look at what they spend, other than their moving expenses, we find that they spend on average it's over $7,000 around moving time. And what is that about? It's all about decorating accessories, so paint, wallpaper, carpet, rugs, the welcome mat they put outside, landscaping, new furniture, home repairs. So a number of people will buy a home and do some repairs, got a bathroom, do renovations when they move in. Furniture, as I mentioned, so a new bedroom set, new living room set, new home electronics. A lot of people, when you move into a new house, they want that new latest model flat screen TV and the new PVR and the new DVD player surround sound. And interestingly enough, 10% of the households that move will end up buying a new car. So it's just some of the categories where people spend money, and this is outside of their already planned moving expenses. And when people are moving, they obviously need services. So they need their internet service, they need phone service, cable, they have to find a new grocery store, and we found through our studies that 80% of them are willing to try new products and services, meaning that internet providers. So if you're one internet provider but you move to a new location, and if another provider is there to greet you or give you a deal when you move, it's really a good way to get the consumers to change. And then with all the bundles, now you can bundle internet, phone, and cable, or satellite services all together, so you can get a better price. Groceries. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that people won't drive much more than 20 minutes to go shopping for groceries. Well, you have to make sure that if you are within that 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, you reach out to those people to get them to come and do their groceries at your location. Same with gasoline, pharmaceuticals, and a number of other categories. If you think of the last time you moved, you have to find out new things about everything that you needed previously. So we do have a complete suite from start to finish, from basic targeting, as I mentioned, with our precision targeter, in-house targeting solutions, where we do our advanced targeting, and then from there we can help with advanced analytics. We have our data products, so our household elite data products, our point of call data, so on and so forth. We also have our list product. So we have a full suite of solution to help you reach your customers, acquire new customers, maintain and retain those customers. And I hope that we can hear from you soon. If you do have any questions, I'll pass it on to Andreas. I believe it's through the chat functionality. Andreas, if you want to take that over.
Excellent. Thanks, Sebastian. Thank you for walking us through that. Yeah, actually, we got a few good questions in already, and so if you have additional ones, please feel free to send them in. Just to kind of give a quick recap, Sebastian mentioned that geography is actually more important than ever, and just thinking about it in your own personal life, whether it's driving or even local vendors. I think even it's kind of a funny phenomena as as we get more and more online and more active online. I kind of personally am finding that we're less apt to drive to the mall 20 minutes away just to kind of search for product. Data does lead to additional insights and targeting. The great case study there from the cash store as an example. Just getting to understand your customer better and understanding their needs better helps with the messaging, the creative, the offers, all those sort of things, which drives your response rate. And geospatial analysis can also give you a better sense of where your customers are coming from and actually where potential customers are coming from as well. As you play around with tools like Precision Targeter and others, you'll see that there's more and more opportunity to reach out to find additional customers. And the cool thing about all this data that Sebastian was talking about is we can actually take a step back from the actual media channel and really try to understand the customer first. And I call it media agnostic sort of analytics, in the sense that let's take a look at where all that data, how that data is speaking, how those customers are speaking to you, interacting with you, and then what's the best integrated media mix and campaign there is that you can put together to actually get your message out there and get the highest impact there. All right, so a few of the questions, Sebastian, I'll ask them a few, and hopefully you can make comment, and if we can't answer them online here, we'll actually we'll field them via email later on. So the question is, with regards to B2B marketing, can you maybe just at a very high level cover some of the sort of targeting tools that we do currently have for B2B marketing, Sebastian?
Yep. So currently we do have some B2B marketing solutions. I'm not going to say we have much or many. We have access currently to the business information as reported by Info USA or Info Canada. It provides us information on businesses by industry, employee size, and sales. All this information is self-reported. We are, however, working on a more robust business targeting solution. I would say you can expect to hear some new stuff within the next few months. We'll have some updates.
Okay. Thanks, Sebastian. So the next question is, can you provide recommendations on the size of a trade area based on the industry you are in? And I know that's a tough question. I'll comment just on that. I mean, it does actually depend, working with some clients, it does depend a lot on the geographic, like the geographic makeup of the neighborhood that you're in, as an example, whether it's urban or rural, suburban, that kind of stuff. But Sebastian, any additional comments you might have on that?
There's a couple ways to define a trade area. So the first, what I would say the most robust way would be to start looking at current customers. So if you have current customers with either postal codes or street addresses, we can start looking where an organization, depending on their industry, is pulling customers from. That's the first way. If an organization does not have any customer data, then it's really sitting down and trying to understand what is the makeup of the area, so where the store location is, and what are the easy access. Like we saw in the presentation, for example, groceries or furniture or retail, people won't drive very far. They'll drive a certain amount of distance. So there are some high-level guidelines that can help define the trade area that way. But it's really looking at the overall, if you're in an urban areas, like if you're downtown Toronto, for example, perhaps, you're not going to look at people that are going to drive 10, 15, 20 minutes because there's a lot more locations. So it's also taking into consideration the competition. So where's your competition? Where are people willing to drive? So there's a number of ways to define that. There's no canned way of doing it, so standard or trade area in a box, if you will. It's really a customized solution. It's really sitting down with each individuals and understanding their business, and we can then provide recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Sebastian. The next question, at what point does customer data become past its sell-by date for predictive modeling and determining where someone is in a life cycle?
That's a great question. We try to use the data as current as possible. I would say, again, based on the industry, right? If we're looking at telco, you probably don't want to use data that's 2 or 3 years old. You want to use something that's a little bit more recent. If you're looking at retail, if you're looking at, for example, appliances, people don't buy appliances every year. So maybe then the shelf life of that data is maybe a little bit longer because the sales cycle is a lot longer as well. So you might be buying appliances every 10 years, 15 years. So you might want to, keep that data and the important thing is to keep it fresh in a sense, like keep track of your customers and where they're moving. So if they're moving, you want to make sure you keep that up to date as well. Again, I don't think there is a boxed solution. It's based on each industry and what the availability is. What's the purpose of the model? Is it for marketing? Is it for site selection? What is it being used for? So again, I would say it's a consultative approach and finding out the proper needs for each industry and each customer.
Okay. Thanks, Sebastian. Actually, we're going to, there's some other questions coming in, but actually I'll reply to them by email. Some of them are around product information with regards to, for example, the movers database, how frequently is that updated, and with regards to access to the data. So we'll provide additional information through the follow-up email. Some additional information about the websites we've built now to support the different analytics and stuff, and some of the case studies, the success stories we've had around these advanced analytics. So thank you very much for joining us. We will be following up by email to everybody who's registered with a copy of the presentation and a copy of the recording. In addition, we'll include some additional links and as well links to the 2 more remaining sessions in this educational webinar series. We'll provide those as well. So if you haven't registered for those, please join us. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Sebastian, and have a great day.